The moon hung thin and pale over Copper Ridge, Kansas, like a sliver of bone against the winter sky. 2 in the morning, the world asleep. Only the wind moved through the dry grass, carrying the smell of frost and distant chimney smoke. Catherine Brennan stood alone in the cemetery at the edge of town, a shovel gripped in both hands. Her breath came in small white clouds that dissolved into the darkness. The headstone before her read simple words carved into weathered granite. James Brennan. Beloved husband. 1856 to 1883. Gone too soon. The words were lies. All of them. Kate drove the shovel into the earth. The blade bit deep, scraping against frozen soil with a sound like breaking teeth. She worked methodically, without pause, piling dirt to one side in a growing mound. Her hands, calloused from ranch work, moved with practiced efficiency. She had dug this grave 18 months ago. Now she was undoing her own work, one shovelful at a time. Sweat soaked through her shirt despite the cold. Her arms burned. She ignored the pain, focused only on the rhythm. Dig, lift, toss. Dig, lift, toss. The hole deepened. 3 feet. 4. The shovel struck something solid. Wood. Kate knelt at the edge of the grave, brushing dirt away with bare hands. The coffin lid appeared rough pine, darkened by time and moisture. She wedged the shovel under the edge, pried up. Nails screamed as they pulled free. The lid lifted, swung back on rusted hinges. Kate stared down into the coffin. Empty. Nothing but stones wrapped in old clothes. The same stones she had placed there herself 18 months ago waited to feel like a body when the pallbearers carried it. The same clothes James had worn the night he disappeared, arranged carefully to maintain the illusion. She reached in, pulled out a small oilcloth packet wedged beneath the stones. Inside a letter. She unfolded it with trembling fingers, read by moonlight. The handwriting was James's, hurried and slanted. Kate, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Duncan knows. Get Lily and run. Don't trust anyone. Not even family. Especially not family. I'm sorry for everything, for all of it. Tell Lily I loved her even if I never showed it. Tell her I was a coward but not a monster. Tell her the truth is buried deeper than any grave. Yours, James. Kate stared at the words until they blurred. Then she folded the letter, placed it back in the oilcloth, and pulled out a match. The sulfur flared bright in the darkness. She held the flame to the corner of the packet, watched it catch and burn. Paper curled black turned to ash. She scattered the remains into the open grave. A sound behind her, the metallic click of a rifle being cocked. Kate froze. Slowly she turned. Gideon Cole stood 10 feet away, Winchester leveled at her chest. The old ranch hand's face was unreadable in the shadows, but his eyes caught the moonlight cold and steady. His right shoulder, the one he claimed was injured in the war, held the rifle without tremor. I know he's not dead, Catherine. His voice was low, almost gentle, dangerous in its calmness. The question is, where are you hiding him? Kate said nothing. Her hand moved slowly toward the shovel. Don't. Gideon shifted his aim fractionally. I've been watching you for 18 months. Waiting. Knew you'd come here eventually. Knew you couldn't resist checking on your little secret. The wind picked up, scattering ash across the open grave. Somewhere in the distance a coyote called out, thin and lonely. Kate's voice came out steady, colder than she felt. You're wrong. Am I? Gideon took a step closer. Then why are you here at 2 in the morning digging up a grave? Why does that coffin have rocks instead of a body? Why are you burning evidence? I don't owe you an explanation. No, but you'll give me one anyway. He lowered the rifle slightly, just enough to be conversational, but not enough to be safe. James Brennan destroyed my life 12 years ago. Framed me for gun running to the Apache. I lost my badge, lost my family, lost everything that mattered. When they finally cleared my name, I swore I'd find him. Make him answer for what he did. Kate's throat tightened. James is dead. James is a coward who fakes his own death to escape consequences. Always has been. Gideon's jaw worked. But you already know that, don't you? That's why you married him. Because you understand running from the past. Because you were doing the same thing. The accusation hung in the cold air. Kate felt her pulse hammer in her ears. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Gideon smiled without warmth. Catherine Brennan showed up in Copper Ridge 8 years ago. No family, no history, married James within 6 months. Never talked about where you came from. Never let anyone get close enough to ask questions. He paused. But I ask questions for a living. Used to anyway. And I found answers. Kate's hand tightened on the shovel handle. You want to know what I found? Gideon continued. I found that there was no Catherine Brennan before 1876, but there was a Catherine McKenna, daughter of Silas McKenna. They called him Sidewinder, bank robber, train thief, hanged in Abilene in 1875. The words landed like blows. Kate felt the world tilt slightly, the edges of her vision darkening. So here we are, Gideon said quietly. 2 people running from who we used to be. 2 people protecting a man who doesn't deserve it. The difference is I'm done running. And I'm done letting James Brennan destroy lives. He raised the rifle again. Tell me where he is, Catherine, or I go to Duncan, and Duncan won't be as patient as me. Kate met his eyes. For a long moment neither spoke. The wind carried the scent of burning paper, of turned earth, of secrets unearthed. Then she said very quietly, "If you knew everything you'd know, James isn't worth finding." The screen went dark. White letters appeared against the blackness. Morning light broke cold and pale over the Brennan ranch, turning the frost on the fence posts to diamonds. The small house sat low against the Kansas plains, weathered boards silvered by wind and time. Smoke curled thin from the chimney, carrying the smell of coffee and wood smoke into the winter air. Catherine Brennan stood at the east fence line, hammer in one hand, a nail clenched between her teeth. The fence post leaned at a drunken angle, victim of last week's storm. She wedged a support board against it, drove the nail home with 3 precise strikes. The sound rang out across the empty pasture, sharp and final. Her hands were rough knuckles scarred from years of work that never seemed to end. At 28, she looked older. The sun had carved lines around her eyes. Hard winters had taught her face to hold expressions it never needed in youth, but her movements remained efficient, economical. No wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. She had learned that from her father. Silas McKenna had taught her many things before they hanged him. How to shoot, how to track, how to read the weather and men's intentions. How to disappear when the law came calling. And most importantly, how to survive when the people you loved turned out to be something other than what they seemed. A sound pulled her attention. Small feet running through dead grass. "Aunt Kate, Aunt Kate!" The Lily Brennan burst around the corner of the barn, 8 years old and thin as a willow switch. Her dark hair flew wild around a face too serious for her age. She wore a dress 2 sizes too big, hand-sewn from flour sacks, and boots that had belonged to her father when he was a boy. The child crashed into Kate's legs, wrapped small arms around her waist. "Can I stay tonight?" "Please, Uncle Nash is drinking again, and he gets loud, and I don't like it when he gets loud." Kate set down the hammer, knelt to eye level with the girl. Lily's face was pale eyes, red-rimmed. Not crying, but close. The child had learned early not to cry. Tears didn't fix things. Tears didn't bring back dead mothers or absent fathers. "Of course you can stay." Kate brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face. "You're always welcome here. You know that." "Uncle Nash says I'm a burden." The words came out small, ashamed. "Uncle Nash says a lot of things when he's drinking. Most of them aren't true." Kate took the child's hand. "Come on, go gather eggs for breakfast. The hens have been busy." Lily's face brightened fractionally. She ran toward the chicken coop, feet kicking up small clouds of dust. Kate watched her go, feeling the familiar ache in her chest. The child looked so much like James. Same dark eyes, same sharp chin, same way of holding her shoulders back even when the world pressed down. But Lily had something James never possessed. A fundamental goodness. A capacity for trust that survived despite everything that should have crushed it. She loves you more than she loves him. Kate turned. Gideon Cole stood near the barn, a bale of hay hoisted on his good shoulder. The old deputy had been working the ranch for 6 months now, showing up one day, asking for work and a place to sleep. She had hired him because hands were scarce and the pay was poor. She'd kept him because he worked hard and asked few questions. Or so she had thought. "Lily loves her uncle," Kate said carefully. "Nash is a drunk. Being blood doesn't make him family." Gideon set down the hay, rotated his shoulder with a grimace. The movement looked painful, practiced. "The girl needs stability, needs someone who shows up sober and keeps promises. She has that with me. For now," Gideon's eyes found hers held. "Question is, how long can you keep playing house before everything catches up?" The words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. Kate felt the familiar prickle of unease that came whenever Gideon looked at her too long, saw too much. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you—" He picked up a pitchfork, began spreading hay for the horses. "You're alone on a ranch that should need 3 men to run. Your husband's been dead 18 months, but you never remarried, never even looked. You keep to yourself, but avoid out to town, only come in for supplies. The girl practically lives here, but you never filed for guardianship. Nash drinks himself blind, but you don't call the law." He paused. "Everything about this situation says you're waiting for something, or hiding from it." Kate's hand drifted unconsciously toward her hip, where she kept a small knife sheathed beneath her apron. "I'm just trying to survive. Same as everyone." "Maybe." Gideon studied her a moment longer. "But most people don't survive by pretending. They survive by facing what's coming." Before Kate could respond, the sound of hoofbeats carried across the pasture. Both of them turned toward the road. A single rider approached, sitting tall in the saddle, moving at an unhurried pace that somehow felt more threatening than speed. Kate's breath caught. "Expecting someone?" Gideon asked quietly. "No." But that was another lie. She had been expecting this, dreading it, knowing it would come eventually because secrets never stayed buried. Not in small towns, not when family was involved, not when the past had teeth. The rider drew closer. Not a cowboy, not a drifter. The man wore a black suit tailored and clean despite the dust of the road. His horse was a blood bay gelding, well-bred and well-kept. Everything about him spoke of money, education, and the kind of patience that came from knowing he would win eventually. Duncan Brennan reined up at the fence line, removed his hat in a gesture of courtesy that felt like mockery. "Mrs. Brennan." His voice was cultured, almost gentle. "I hope I'm not intruding." Kate walked toward the fence, slowly wiping her hands on her apron. Behind her she sensed Gideon's attention, sharp and the old lawman's instincts engaging. "Mr. Brennan," she kept her voice level, "this is unexpected." "I imagine it is." Duncan's eyes, the same pale blue as James's, traveled over the ranch, taking inventory, noting the sagging barn, the patched roof, the fence line held together with wire and stubbornness. "I've been meaning to visit. Pay my respects. It's been too long since the funeral." 18 months. "Yes, 18 months. He swung down from the saddle with easy grace. "May I—" It wasn't really a question. Duncan was already tying the reins to the fence post, already stepping through the gate onto her property, claiming space the way men like him always did, with the assumption that permission was a formality, not a requirement. Kate stood her ground. "If this is about the ranch, I'm not selling." "Selling?" Duncan smiled. The expression didn't reach his eyes. "No, Mrs. Brennan. I'm not here about the ranch. I'm here about my brother." The air seemed to grow colder. From the direction of the chicken coop, Lily's laughter rang out bright and innocent. The sound felt fragile, like glass about to break. "James is dead," Kate said. "Is he—" Duncan took a step closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. "That's what everyone says. That's what the death certificate claims. That's what the grave marker reads." Another step. "But you know what's strange? I was there when they lowered the coffin. I watched, and I noticed something peculiar." Kate's pulse quickened. She forced herself to remain still to breathe normally. "It was too light," Duncan continued. "The way the pallbearers carried it. 6 grown men, and they weren't straining. Weren't adjusting their grips. A body, even a thin one, has weight. Dead weight. But that coffin moved like it was carrying air. James was always slight. James was my brother. I know what he weighed." Duncan's smile faded. "I also know he was involved in things he shouldn't have been. Things that made dangerous people angry. Things that might make a man want to disappear rather than face consequences." "You're suggesting what exactly—" "I'm suggesting my brother is alive. I'm suggesting you helped him fake his death, and I'm suggesting you know where he is." The accusation hung between them, bold and undeniable. Kate felt Gideon's presence shift behind her, the old deputy moving into a better position. Whether to protect her or restrain her, she couldn't tell. "That's an interesting theory," Kate said carefully. "But it's just a theory." "Is it—" Duncan reached into his jacket. Kate tensed, but he only pulled out a letter, unfolded it. "This came from the Santa Fe postmaster 3 weeks ago, a response to inquiries I made. It seems someone matching James's description has been receiving mail at a boarding house near the Mexican border. Bills, personal correspondence, all under the name James Brenner, 1 letter different. Clever but not clever enough." Kate's stomach twisted. She kept her face blank. "Even if that were true, what does it matter, James left? Whether he's dead or alive somewhere else, he's not your problem anymore." "He's family," Duncan said quietly. "That makes him my problem. Always. Family." The word tasted bitter. "James told me about family, about how your father treated him, about how you blamed him for every mistake, every failure, about how the great Brennan name mattered more than the people who carried it." Something flickered in Duncan's eyes. Anger, perhaps, or pain, hard to tell. "My father built something. A legacy. James chose to destroy it through selfishness and cowardice. I won't let that stand. I won't let him hide while our family name carries the stain of his crimes. So this is about reputation. This is about justice." Duncan's voice hardened. "My father died believing his son was a thief and a coward. Died with that shame eating him from the inside. Heart attack, they said. But I know better. James killed him as surely as if he'd pulled a trigger. And what do you want from me?" "The truth." Duncan folded the letter, slid it back into his jacket. "Tell me where James is. Help me bring him back to face what he's done. Let him answer for his choices like a man instead of hiding like a rat. I can't help you." Then can't or won't. Both. Duncan studied her for a long moment. Then he glanced past her toward where Lily was emerging from the chicken coop with a basket of eggs. The girl saw the stranger stopped. Her face went cautious, the way wild animals freeze when sensing predators. "Beautiful child," Duncan said softly. "Looks like her father." Kate's blood went cold. "Leave Lily out of this. I'm not the one who brought her into it. James did that when he abandoned his daughter. When he left her to be raised by a drunk uncle and a woman pretending to be family." Duncan's eyes returned to Kate. How long do you think that arrangement lasts? How long before Nash's drinking gets worse? Before the law asks questions about why an orphan lives with someone who isn't legal kin? Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Duncan retrieved his hat, brushed dust from the brim. You have 3 days, Mrs. Brennan. 3 days to think about your position. To consider what's best for that little girl. To decide whether protecting a man who doesn't deserve it is worth the consequences. He walked back to his horse, mounted with practiced ease. 3 days, he repeated. After that I take other measures, less pleasant ones. Duncan touched his hat brim in mock courtesy, turned the bay, and rode away. His figure dwindled against the pale winter sky until it vanished over the low rise toward town. Kate stood frozen, watching the empty horizon. Her hands had curled into fists without her noticing. Her breath came fast and shallow. That was Duncan Brennan, Gideon said behind her. His voice was carefully neutral. James's older brother, former Pinkerton detective, reputation for being thorough, patient, doesn't quit once he's on a trail. Kate turned. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know people who matter. Duncan matters. Gideon's eyes were steady. He's not bluffing. If he says 3 days, he means it. Then I have 3 days. To do what run you can't, not with the girl. Hyde Duncan already knows too much. Fight. Gideon shook his head. He's got law on his side. Money. Connections. You've got a failing ranch and secrets. I've got more than that. Do you? Gideon took a step closer, voice dropping. Because from where I stand, you've got nothing but borrowed time and a choice you don't want to make. Kate met his eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition of shared damage. Understanding of impossible positions. Then Lily called out, voice bright with innocent worry. Aunt Kate, who was that man? Kate forced a smile, turned toward the child. No one important, sweetheart. Just someone passing through. Another lie. They were piling up like winter snow. Soon the weight would be too much. Soon everything would collapse. But not today. Today she would smile and gather eggs and pretend the world wasn't closing in. Today she would be the person Lily needed her to be. Tomorrow could bring its own reckoning. The night James Brennan died started like any other. Kate woke to darkness and silence, the kind of deep quiet that settles over the plains when even the wind holds its breath. She lay still, listening. Something had pulled her from sleep, some sound that didn't belong. There, faint, a horse moving restless in the barn. She rose, pulled on boots and a shawl, moved through the dark house by feel and memory. The floorboards were cold under her feet. Outside the sky was moonless, thick with clouds that promised snow but hadn't delivered. Stars punched through in scattered clusters, offering barely enough light to navigate by. The barn door stood open. It shouldn't have been. James was particular about closing things, securing property. Years of looking over his shoulder had made him cautious about leaving vulnerabilities. Kate's hand found the pitchfork leaning against the wall. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. She moved into the barn, eyes adjusting slowly to the deeper darkness within. James. A sound. Wet, labored breathing, coming from the far stall. Kate ran forward, dropped the pitchfork. James lay crumpled against the wall, hand pressed to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, black in the shadows. His face was pale, slicked with sweat despite the cold. Oh God, James. She knelt beside him, pulled his hand away to assess the damage. The wound was high, just below the collarbone. Through and through. Bleeding but not arterial. He would live. If they got help. If infection didn't set in. Don't. James gasped. His other hand caught her wrist. Don't call anyone. Can't. He'll know. Who did this? Duncan. The name came out like a curse. He found me. Found out about the job, about the money, about all of it. Kate's mind raced. We need a doctor. You'll bleed out. No doctor, no law, no one. James's grip tightened. Listen. You have to listen. Duncan won't stop. He thinks I stole from the family. Thinks I'm the reason our father, he'll kill me. Or worse, he'll have me hanged. Make it public. Make it humiliating. Then we run, tonight, pack what we can and go. Go where he's Pinkerton. He's got connections everywhere. And I can't run, not like this. James coughed, grimaced. But I have an idea. A way out. For me. For you. What are you talking about? We fake my death. The words hung in the cold air. Kate stared at him, waiting for the fever to explain such madness. But James's eyes were clear. Desperate but clear. You're serious. It's the only way. Duncan wants me dead or disgraced. If I'm dead, he stops hunting. He gets his justice or close enough. And I get to live. James pulled himself upright with a grunt of pain. We stage an accident. Tonight. Saddle my horse, make it look like I went riding. You come out in the morning, find me thrown. Head wound. Bled out fast. Too fast to save. No one will believe that. They'll believe what they want to believe. People always do. He gripped her shoulders with both hands, now ignoring the blood. I trust you. Only you. You're the only person in my life who never asked me to be something I'm not, who never judged, who just accepted. Because I know what it's like to run, Kate thought. Because I know what it's like to bury who you were and pray no one digs deep enough to find the bones. What about Lily? The words came out harder than she intended. Your daughter. You're just going to abandon her, let her grow up thinking you're dead. James flinched. Better she thinks I'm dead than knows the truth. That her father is a thief, a coward, a man who destroyed his own family's honor. His voice cracked. I'm poison, Kate. Everything I touch turns to ash. Lily deserves better than that. She deserves her father. She deserves a chance at normal, at good. I can't give her that. Never could. He released Kate, slumped back against the wall. But you can. You love her. I see it. The way you look at her, the way she lights up when you're around. You're more mother to her than Margaret ever was. The mention of James's first wife dead in childbirth hung between them. Or supposedly dead. There were whispers, always whispers in small towns, about how quickly James had moved on, about how convenient the timing had been. But Kate had never asked. Some questions had answers you couldn't unhear. If I do this, Kate said slowly, if I help you fake your death, you leave. Tonight. You cross into Mexico, and you never come back. Never contact us, never put Lily at risk. I swear. And I keep the ranch for Lily. When she's old enough, it's hers. You sign papers, legal documents before you go? James nodded. Done. Anything? One more thing. Kate looked down at him. If Duncan finds out, if anyone finds out, I'll tell the truth. That you were a coward who ran. I won't protect you. I'll protect Lily. Understand? I understand. They worked through the night. Kate cleaned and bandaged the wound while James drafted a letter to his lawyer signing over the ranch in trust for Lily, naming Kate as guardian. She saddled his horse, led it to the rocky outcrop a quarter-mile from the house. They staged the scene. Blood on the stones from James's shoulder, his hat trampled. The horse running free, returning at dawn riderless and panicked. Before James left, he looked back at the house one last time. Tell her I loved her, when she's older, when she can understand. I'll tell her you were complicated. That's the kindest truth I can offer. James mounted the spare horse they'd kept hidden in the far pasture. The wound had stopped bleeding, bandaged tight under his shirt. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Thank you, Kate, for everything. She said nothing, just watched him ride into the darkness heading south toward the border and whatever life waited on the other side of his choices. When dawn came, Kate walked to the outcrop, screamed loud enough for the neighbors to hear, collapsed beside the stage scene and wept real tears, for the life she'd thought she could build, for the child who would grow up with another missing parent, for the lies she would have to tell day after day until they became truth. Sheriff Ford came, asked questions, accepted her grief-stricken answers. The whole town turned out for the funeral 3 days later. They lowered a coffin weighted with stones into frozen ground, said prayers over a grave that held nothing but deception. Duncan stood at the back of the small crowd, face unreadable. He watched everything, noted everything. And when it was over, he approached Kate with sympathy that felt like suspicion. My condolences, Mrs. Brennan. If there's anything, eat anything at all, you let me know. Thank you. James was troubled, always was, but I never thought he'd go like this. So sudden, so violent. Duncan paused. You must have heard something. The fall, the horse, something. I sleep heavy, Kate lied. By the time I woke, it was too late. Duncan nodded slowly. Of course. Tragedy often is. He left shortly after returning to his business in Topeka, but every few months a letter would arrive, checking on her, offering assistance, asking subtle questions about finances, about visitors, about her plans, always polite, always concerned, always watching. 18 months. 18 months of looking over her shoulder, of jumping at unexpected visitors, of teaching Lily to be careful, to be quiet, to never draw attention. 18 months of building a life on quicksand. And now Duncan was back, not writing from a distance, here, in person, with questions that had teeth. Kate walked through the house after Duncan left, checking windows, securing doors, old habits from her father's time. When you lived outside the law, you learned to sleep light and plan escape routes. The house had 3 exits and a root cellar that connected to an old mining tunnel 100 yards out. She'd never needed them. Until now. Lily sat at the kitchen table sorting eggs by size. The child's hands moved with practiced efficiency, placing each egg in the appropriate basket. She didn't look up when Kate entered. He scared me, Lily said quietly. That man. He looked at me like I was something he owned. Kate's chest tightened. You don't have to worry about him. But you do. It wasn't a question. Lily had her father's eyes, but her mother's perception. She saw things adults tried to hide. Is he going to hurt us? No one's going to hurt you, I promise. You can't promise that. Lily finally looked up, and her eyes were too old, too knowing. Uncle Nash promised my mama wouldn't die. Papa promised he'd always be here. Promises don't mean anything when bad things want to happen. The words landed like stones. Kate sat down across from the child, reached out, took small hands in her own. You're right. I can't control everything. Can't stop all bad things. But I can control this. I can keep you safe, and I will, whatever it takes. Even if it means doing bad things. The question hung there, impossibly wise, from an 8-year-old mouth. Where did you hear that? Uncle Nash, when he drinks, he talks. Says everyone does bad things when they're scared enough. Says that's how the world works. Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, reporting observations. Is that true, Aunt Kate? Do you do bad things when you're scared? Kate thought of the empty coffin, of the lies she told every day, of her father's lessons about survival and the flexible nature of right and wrong. Sometimes good people have to make hard choices, choices that might look bad from the outside. But if the reason is good, if it's to protect someone you love, then maybe it's not as bad as it seems. That sounds like something people say when they know it's wrong, but do it anyway. The child was too smart, too perceptive. Kate felt exposed, seen in a way that made her deeply uncomfortable. Go feed the chickens, she said more sharply than intended. Before dark. Lily slid from the chair, took the scrap bucket, headed for the door. At the threshold she paused. I love you, Aunt Kate, even if you do bad things, 'cause I know you do them for me too. Then she was gone, screen door banging shut. Kate sat alone in the dimming kitchen, feeling the weight of those words settle over her like snow. When had the child figured it out? How much did she understand, and what would happen when the truth, the full truth, finally came to light? A knock at the door, not Lily. The child never knocked. Kate rose, hand instinctively checking the knife at her belt. Moved to the door. Through the window she could see Gideon's silhouette against the sunset. She opened the door, didn't invite him in. What do you want? Gideon stood with his hat in his hands, turning the brim slowly. We need to talk about what's coming. I don't need your advice. Not advice. Information. He met her eyes. I know who you are, Catherine. Know who your father was. Know why you changed your name and came to Copper Ridge. Know about the warrant in Abilene. The one they never served because Silas McKenna took all the blame. Kate's hand tightened on the doorframe. You're lying. Am I? Gideon reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded wanted poster. Old yellowed but legible. A sketch of a young woman, maybe 19, eyes too wide, face too thin, but recognizable if you knew where to look. Catherine McKenna, wanted for accessory to bank robbery, $500 reward. Never collected because her father confessed to working alone. Took a noose to protect his daughter. Kate stared at the poster, at the ghost of who she used to be. Where did you get that? I was a lawman for 20 years before James destroyed that. I know how to find records, how to connect dots. Gideon folded the poster, held it out. This is the only copy I could find. Everyone else forgot, but I didn't. She didn't take it. What do you want, Money the Ranch? I want James Brennan to answer for what he did to me. That's all I've ever wanted. Gideon's voice was steady, but underneath ran something harder, colder. But I'm not stupid. I know Duncan is dangerous. No, he won't stop at James. He'll burn everything down to get what he wants, including you, including that little girl. So we have a common problem. Duncan Brennan is coming for both of us. For you because you're protecting James. For me because I know too much about the family's dirty secrets, he paused. We can help each other, or we can burn separately. Kate studied him, trying to read truth from deception, trying to see past the layers of hurt and anger to whatever core remained. How do I know you won't sell me out the first chance you get? You don't, but I know something about you that might help. Gideon's expression softened fractionally. I know you're protecting that girl with everything you have. Know you'd die before letting harm come to her. I had a daughter once, Emma, 10 years old when I went to prison. Died of fever while I was inside. Her mother couldn't afford medicine, couldn't pay for care. I wasn't there. His voice cracked on the last words. Every day I wake up knowing I failed her. Knowing if I'd been there, if I'd been free, she might have lived. That's a weight I'll carry forever. He looked at Kate directly. I can't save my daughter, but maybe I can help you save Lily. Maybe that's worth something. Maybe that's the only thing left that is. Kate felt something shift. Not trust. Not yet. But understanding, recognition of shared wounds. If I let you help you do exactly what I say, no improvising, no going after James on your own, we focus on Duncan, on keeping Lily safe, everything else comes after. Agreed. And if James comes back, if he shows up here, you don't touch him until Lily is secure. Gideon hesitated, then nodded. I can live with that. One more thing. Kate stepped closer. You use that poster, you breathe one word about my past to anyone, and I will kill you. Not a threat, a promise. My father taught me things before they hanged him. Useful things? Don't test me. I believe you. Gideon extended his hand. Partners, until Duncan is dealt with. Kate looked at the offered hand, at the scars on his knuckles, at the tremor he tried to hide, at the desperation barely masked by pride. She took it, shook once, firm. Partners, they released, stood awkward in the fading light. Duncan gave you 3 days, Gideon said. That means he's planning something for day 4, something public, something that forces your hand. Like what? Like involving the law, or taking Lily into protective custody, or burning the ranch. He paused. Or all 3. Kate's stomach clenched. He wouldn't dare. He's a Brennan. They don't make empty threats. Gideon turned to leave, then stopped. There's something else you should know. Duncan didn't come here alone. I saw 2 riders on the ridge this morning, watching the ranch. Professional. Pinkerton men, probably. He's already got surveillance in place. How many? Can't be sure. At least 2, maybe more. Kate looked past him toward the horizon where shadows gathered. Somewhere out there, men watched, waited, documented her movements, built a case. This is 72 hours, she said quietly. Not much time. No, but it's what we have. Gideon settled his hat. I'll patrol tonight. Make sure no one gets close. Tomorrow we plan. He walked into the gathering dusk figure dissolving into shadow. Kate watched until he was gone, then closed the door. Locked it, checked it twice. Lily came in from feeding chickens, cheeks flushed from cold and exertion. Can we read tonight the book about the princess and the dragon? Kate forced a smile. Of course. Go wash up. As the child ran to the wash basin, Kate moved to the window, stared out at the darkening land. Somewhere beyond her sight, men watched her house. In Topeka, Duncan Brennan planned his next move. In Mexico, if he was even still alive, James Brennan hid from consequences. And here in this small house on a failing ranch, a woman who used to be someone else tried to hold everything together with lies and borrowed time. 3 days. 72 hours to find a way out. To protect a child who wasn't hers by blood, but was hers in every way that mattered. The stars came out cold and distant and uncaring. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of snow that wouldn't fall. And Catherine Brennan, who used to be Catherine McKenna, daughter of a hanged outlaw prepared for war, because some things were worth fighting for, some lies were worth keeping, and some children deserved to grow up safe even if the world had to burn to make it so. She turned from the window. Lily waited at the table book, open eyes, bright with anticipation. For this moment, for this night, they could pretend, could be normal, could be a family. Tomorrow would bring its reckoning. Tonight they would read about dragons and princesses and happy endings that existed only in stories. But sometimes Kate thought as she sat beside the child and began to read, sometimes stories were enough. Sometimes pretending was all you had, and sometimes you fought like hell to make the pretending real. The clock on the mantel ticked past midnight. 36 hours remained before Duncan's deadline expired. 36 hours to find a solution that didn't exist. Kate sat at the kitchen table surrounded by maps and papers that offered no answers. The ranch layout, town plat, old mining charts from when Copper Ridge lived up to its name. She'd been staring at them for hours trying to see something she'd missed, some advantage, some leverage. Nothing came. A knock at the door. 3 soft raps of paws, then 2 more. Gideon's signal. She rose, let him in. The old deputy looked haggard, dust-caked eyes red from lack of sleep. They took her. His voice was flat, emotionless in the way of men barely holding together. Nash came by my quarters an hour ago. Lily's gone. Taken from his house some time after dark. The words hit like physical blows. Kate gripped the table edge, knuckles white. You're sure? Nash is drunk out of his mind, but he's sure. Lily was sleeping. He checked on her around 9. When he went back at 11, the window was open. No sign of struggle, no noise, just gone. Gideon pulled a folded paper from his pocket. This was on her pillow. Kate took it with trembling hands. Unfolded, read. Mrs. Brennan, your time is up. The child is safe for now. You have 48 hours. Bring James to the old copper mine at dawn day after tomorrow, alone. Or I start sending pieces of her back to you, 1 finger at a time. Don't test my resolve. Duncan Brennan. The paper fell from Kate's hands. She stood frozen, mind racing through scenarios, all of them ending in blood. He has her. The words came out strangled. He has Lily. Yes. Gideon moved to the window, looked out at the darkness. This changes everything. No, Kate's voice hardened. This changes nothing. We get her back. How? We don't know where she is. Don't know how many men Duncan has. Don't have time to mount a proper rescue. He turned back. And even if we did, the moment we move against him, he kills her. That's how men like Duncan work. Always hold leverage. Always stay 3 moves ahead. Then we find James, bring him back, trade him for Lily. You know where he is. Kate hesitated. The question she'd been dreading. The answer that would doom James and possibly save Lily. Or doom them both. Mexico, probably. Near Juarez. That's where the letters came from. She met Gideon's eyes. But I can't get there and back in 48 hours. It's impossible. So we're out of options. No. A new voice from the doorway. Nash Brennan stumbled in bottle in hand, face blotchy and wet with tears. We go to the mine. We fight. We take her back. Kate looked at James's younger brother, 24 years old and already destroyed by drink and failure. But beneath the ruins something flickered. Desperation, love. The same reckless need to protect that had driven their father before whiskey drowned it. Nash, you're drunk? I'm always drunk. He set the bottle down with exaggerated care. But I'm still her uncle. Still her blood. And I'll be damned if I let Duncan use that baby like bait. He straightened, swaying slightly. I'm going, with or without you. Gideon stepped forward. You'd get yourself killed in the first minute. Then I die for something that matters instead of drowning slow in a bottle. Nash's eyes, so much like James's, found Kate's. I know I'm worthless. No, I failed Lily every day since Margaret died. But maybe just once I can do the right thing. Silence filled the kitchen. The clock ticked. Outside a dog barked somewhere distant. The night pressed against the windows like a living thing. Then footsteps on the porch. Everyone tensed. Gideon's hand went to his gun. Kate grabbed the rifle leaning by the door. A knock. Tentative, almost apologetic. Mrs. Brennan, it's Sheriff Ford. I need to speak with you. Kate opened the door a crack. Tobias Ford stood in the lamplight hat and the hands face grave. Behind him the street lay empty. He had come alone. Little late for a social call, Sheriff. This isn't social. Ford's voice was low. May I come in? What I have to say shouldn't be heard in the open. She let him enter. The sheriff nodded to Gideon and Nash, then turned to Kate. I know about Lily. No, Duncan took her. And I know I should be arresting him right now instead of standing here. He paused. But I can't. Duncan saved my son's life 5 years back. Rode into a bandit camp alone, brought my boy out. I owe him a debt I can never repay. So you're here to tell us you won't help. Kate's voice was ice. I'm here to tell you I can't help officially, but unofficially. Ford pulled a key from his pocket. The armory will be unlocked tonight. I'll be making rounds on the east side of town. Won't be near the station for at least 2 hours. If someone were to borrow rifles, ammunition, maybe a few sticks of dynamite left over from the mining days, I wouldn't know about it until morning. He set the key on the table. I also happen to know Duncan has 8 men. Pinkertons and hired guns. They're camped at the old mine waiting. The mine has 3 entrances. Main, secondary, and a ventilation shaft that comes up behind the ridge. Ford met each of their eyes in turn. I can create a distraction tomorrow night. Pull some of Duncan's men away with a fake report of trouble in town. Cut his numbers by half, maybe. Why? Gideon asked. Why risk your career, your life? Because taking a child is wrong. No matter the debt I owe, no matter the reason some lines don't get crossed. Ford's jaw tightened. My boy is 10 now. Same age Lily will be in a couple years. I keep thinking, what if it was him? What if someone took my son and used him like bait? I'd want someone to help, even if they couldn't do it openly. Kate felt something loosen in her chest. Not hope, not quite, but the absence of total despair. Thank you. Ford nodded, moved toward the door, paused at the threshold. One more thing. There's a woman staying at Maggie Stone's boarding house. Came into town 3 days ago. Asked a lot of questions about the Brennan family, about Lily. Might be worth talking to her. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night like a ghost. The 4 of them stood in silence. Gideon was the first to speak. We have a chance now, small but real. We need more than chance. Kate moved to the table, spread out the mine map. We need a plan. Nash, how much do you remember about the mine you worked there before it closed? Some. Nash leaned over the map, squinting. Main shaft goes down about 200 feet. Lots of side tunnels. Easy to get lost if you don't know the layout. The ventilation shaft is narrow, maybe wide enough for one person at a time. That's our way in. Gideon traced the route with his finger. Small team through the vent shaft while Duncan watches the main entrance. We get Lily out before he knows we're there. Except he'll be expecting that. Kate shook her head. Duncan's too smart to leave an obvious opening. He'll have men at all 3 entrances. Then we create a 4th opening. Gideon tapped a spot on the map. Here, old collapse from 10 years back. The tunnel's blocked but not completely. A man with enough time and muscle could dig through, come up inside the mine behind Duncan's position. How long would that take? With 3 of us working, maybe 6 hours. Kate looked at the clock. We start now, work through the night and tomorrow. By the time Duncan's deadline comes, we'll be in position. Nash straightened. I'll do it. The digging. You 2 need to arrest, stay sharp for the fight. I'm good for nothing else, but I can swing a pick. You're drunk, Gideon said. Then I'll sober up while I work. Nash's face was set. Please, let me do this. Let me be worth something. Kate studied him. Saw past the drink and failure to the man he might have been. The man he could still be, maybe if given one chance to prove it. All right, take water, food, work steady, not fast, and Nash, if you're still drunk when we need you, I'll shoot you myself. He nodded, grabbed supplies, headed out into the darkness. Gideon moved to follow, but Kate stopped him. There's something I need to do first. Someone I need to see. Maggie Stone's boarding house sat at the quiet end of Main Street, a two-story structure that had seen better days but maintained a certain shabby dignity. Lamplight glowed in the downstairs windows. Kate tied her horse to the rail, climbed the creaking steps. The door opened before she could knock. A woman stood silhouetted against the warm interior light, slim, maybe 35. Hair the color of aged honey pulled back in a simple bun. Eyes that held too much knowledge and not enough peace. Mrs. Brennan. The woman's voice was soft, almost musical. I wondered when you'd come. You know who I am. I know many things. The woman stepped back. Please, come in. We should talk privately. Kate followed her through a modest sitting room to a small office in the back. The walls were lined with ledgers and account books. A single lamp burned on the desk. The woman gestured to a chair, took one herself. My name is Margaret Stone. I run this establishment, have for 8 years now. She folded her hands in her lap. But that's not who I've always been. Sheriff Ford said you were asking about the Brennan family. Yes, about James, about his daughter, about you. Margaret's eyes never left Kate's face. I needed to know who was caring for my child. The words hung in the air like smoke. Kate felt the world tilt slightly. Your child. I'm Margaret Brennan, or I was before I became Margaret Stone. Before I died. Or before James told everyone I died. Her voice remained steady, but pain threaded through it. I gave birth to Lily 8 years ago. Nearly died doing it. Fever, blood loss. The doctors said I wouldn't survive the night. But I did. Kate's mind raced. James said you were dead. Said you died in childbirth. James said many things, most of them lies. Margaret walked to the window, looked out at the empty street. I woke up 3 days after giving birth. Weak, delirious, but alive. James was gone. My baby was gone. The nurse told me James had taken the child, said it was better this way, that I was too sick to care for a newborn, that he'd found someone else to help. He abandoned you. He left money. A note. Told me to disappear. Start over somewhere else. Said if I ever came back, ever tried to claim Lily, he'd make sure I was arrested for abandoning my child. Margaret turned back and her eyes were dry, but haunted. So I disappeared. Changed my name, moved to Copper Ridge because I couldn't bear to be far from my daughter. Opened this boarding house. Watched from a distance as Lily grew up. Kate felt rage building. At James. At the casual cruelty of abandoning a woman who'd nearly died giving him a child. At all of it. Why didn't you take her back? Why let Nash raise her? Let me pretend to be family. Because I watched you with her. Margaret's voice broke slightly. I saw how you loved her, how gentle you were, how patient. And I saw how Lily looked at you, like you were the sun and moon, like you were everything good in a hard world. She swallowed. What could I offer her? A broken woman running a boarding house? A mother she doesn't remember, or you strong, capable? Someone who chose to love her without obligation. She deserves the truth. She deserves to be happy. The truth can wait until she's old enough to understand that love matters more than blood. Margaret moved closer. I didn't come here to take her from you. I came because Duncan Brennan has been in town for a week, asking questions, making threats, and I knew something was coming. He took her, tonight. He's holding her hostage to draw out James. Margaret's face went pale. Where? Old copper mine. He wants James delivered in 48 hours or he starts cutting off Lily's fingers. The woman swayed, caught herself on the desk. When she spoke again, her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. What do you need from me? I need a man, someone who can pass for James in dim light, someone expendable. You're going to trick Duncan. I'm going to buy time, get close enough to take Lily back by force. Kate leaned forward. Can you help? Margaret was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. There's a drifter staying in room 4, Thomas Wade. Drunk most of the time. Right height, right build. Dark hair like James. For the right price, he'd wear a hood and pretend to be the devil himself. How much? $50. I'll pay it. Consider it the least I can do for my daughter. Margaret's eyes met Kate's. But I want something in return. What? Let me help. Let me be part of saving her. I've watched from the shadows for 8 years. Just this once, let me be her mother in more than name. Kate studied the woman before her, saw the desperation, the need for redemption. The same thing she saw in Gideon, in Nash, in herself. All right, But you follow orders. No improvising, no heroics. We get Lily out alive. Everything else is secondary. Understood. Margaret stood, moved to a cabinet, pulled out a small pistol, checked the chambers with practiced ease. I wasn't always a boarding house keeper. My father was a lawman. Taught me to shoot before I could write my name. She looked at Kate. James didn't know that about me. Never asked. Never cared enough to learn. But I know how to protect what's mine. Kate rose. We move tomorrow night. Be ready. As she turned to leave, Margaret spoke again. Mrs. Brennan, Kate, thank you. For loving her when I couldn't. For being what she needed. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Lily. I know. That's why I trust you. Dawn came cold and clear. Kate stood in Lily's room surrounded by the small artifacts of a child's life. A rag doll stitched from scraps. A collection of smooth river stones. A drawing of a horse carefully preserved between two pieces of glass. Each item told a story. Each one was a piece of the girl she'd come to love. The door creaked. Gideon entered, moving quietly despite his size. Nash is still digging. Made good progress through the night. Should have a way through by sunset. He paused. How are you holding up? I'm fine. You're lying. He moved to stand beside her. I've seen enough people on the edge to recognize the signs. You're terrified, angry, ready to tear the world apart to get her back. Kate said nothing, just stared at the rag doll. I had a daughter, Gideon said quietly. Emma. I told you she died of fever while I was in prison. What I didn't tell you is that the last time I saw her, we fought. She was 9, wanted a new dress for her birthday. I said no. Money was tight. She cried, called me mean, ran to her room. He fell silent. Kate waited. The next day, the law came. James's frame job. I was arrested before I could apologize. Before I could tell her I'd find a way to get that dress. Before I could say I loved her. His voice roughened. 3 months later, she got sick. Fever, my wife couldn't afford the doctor, couldn't afford medicine. I got word in prison. By the time I was released on bail, Emma was already buried. Kate turned to look at him. The old deputy's eyes were wet. I never got to say I was sorry. Never got to tell her she was right, that a dress mattered more than pride. Never got to be the father she deserved. He met Kate's gaze. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let the last memory Lily has be of you sending her away, of you being too busy or too scared to say what matters. I won't get the chance if we fail. Then we don't fail. Gideon's voice hardened. I couldn't save Emma, but I can help save Lily. And maybe, in some small way, that makes the weight a little lighter. They stood together in the silence. Two broken people held together by shared purpose and the desperate need to protect one innocent life. After a moment, Kate spoke. Your daughter. What was she like? Gideon's face softened. Stubborn, smart, laughed at everything even when there wasn't much to laugh about. She loved stories, would make me tell her tales every night before bed, always wanted the hero to win, always believed good would triumph. She sounds wonderful. She was. He turned toward the door. Get some rest. Tonight's going to be long and ugly. You'll need your strength. He left. Kate remained in the room holding the rag doll. Outside the sun climbed higher. 30 hours remained. 30 hours until they rode into hell with nothing but hope and desperation. She set the doll down gently, walked to her own room, pulled a small wooden box from beneath the bed. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, her father's revolver, the one he'd carried through a dozen robberies, the one he'd taught her to shoot with. She cleaned it methodically, loaded fresh rounds, tested the action. The gun felt heavy in her hand, heavier than it should, weighted with memory and blood. Her father's voice echoed from years past. When you point a gun at someone, you better be ready to pull the trigger. Hesitation gets you killed. Mercy gets you killed. Only the ruthless survive. But was that true? Or was that just what men told themselves to justify the darkness? Kate didn't know. Wasn't sure she cared anymore. All that mattered was Lily. Getting her back, keeping her safe. Everything else was noise. She holstered the revolver, lay down on the bed, closed her eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. Just images of a small girl with dark hair and her father's eyes. A girl who deserved better than any of them could give. A girl worth dying for. The hours crawled past like wounded things. Night fell with the weight of lead. No moon, heavy clouds obscured the stars. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the torches burning at the entrance to the old copper mine. Kate sat her horse at the edge of the clearing, 50 yards from the mine entrance. Behind her, Gideon and Nash waited with the false James the Drifter, Thomas Wade, hooded and bound loosely to look like a prisoner. Margaret Stone sat her own horse at the back, face set with determination. 8 torches ringed the mine opening. In their light, Kate could see men, 6 of them visible. Rifles held ready, professional, alert. Duncan's Pinkerton agents hired guns who killed for money and slept soundly after. And in front of them all, Duncan Brennan stood calm and composed in his black suit, Beside him, held firmly by a man twice her size, Lily. The child's face was pale but composed. She hadn't cried, hadn't broken. 8 years old and already learning to be steel. "Mrs. Brennan," Duncan's voice carried across the clearing. "Punctual. I appreciate that. It speaks to the seriousness of your commitment." Kate dismounted, walked forward slowly, hands visible and empty, stopped 20 feet from Duncan. "Let her go. I brought what you wanted." "Did you—" Duncan's eyes shifted to the hooded figure. "That's James. Forgive my skepticism, but I've been fooled before, by you specifically. It's him, half dead from the ride up from Mexico, but alive, just like you wanted." Duncan studied her, then gestured. 2 of his men moved toward the hooded drifter. Gideon and Nash backed away, hands raised in surrender. The Pinkertons grabbed Thomas Wade, dragged him forward, threw him down at Duncan's feet. One man yanked the hood off. For a moment in the torchlight, the resemblance held. Dark hair, right height, gaunt from drink and hard living. Then Duncan knelt, looked at the man's face, and smiled without humor. "You must think me stupid." He stood, drew his pistol, shot Thomas Wade through the chest. The drifter jerked once and went still. Blood pooled black in the dirt. Kate's heart slammed against her ribs. Behind her, she heard Gideon curse softly. "That's not James." Duncan's voice was conversational, almost amused. "That's a drunk you hired to play dress-up, which means you're stalling, which means you don't actually know where my brother is." He cocked the pistol again, this time aimed at Lily. "I gave you clear instructions, Mrs. Brennan. You chose to ignore them. That has consequences." "Wait." Kate took a step forward. "Just wait. I can explain." "No need." Duncan's finger tightened on the trigger. "Actions speak louder than words, and your action was to lie to me, to waste my time, to treat this negotiation like a game." Lily looked at Kate across the distance. The child's eyes were wide but not afraid, trusting, believing somehow that everything would be all right because Aunt Kate had never let her down before. That trust was about to be shattered. Then gunfire erupted from the ridge. Not from Kate's people, from somewhere else. High-powered rifles. 3 shots in quick succession. 2 of Duncan's men went down, the others scattered, seeking cover. The man holding Lily released her dove behind a rock outcrop. Lily ran, straight toward Kate, small legs pumping, hair flying. "Get down!" Kate screamed. But her voice was lost in the chaos. More gunfire. From the mine entrance now. Gideon and Nash had recovered their weapons, were firing at Duncan's men. Margaret joined in, her small pistol cracking sharp in the night. And through it all, a figure emerged from the darkness of the mine tunnel itself. Tall, gaunt, moving with the halting gait of someone injured or exhausted. James Brennan stepped into the torchlight. "Duncan!" His voice was raw, desperate. "Duncan, stop! I'm here! Let them go!" Everything froze. The gunfire stuttered to silence. Both sides stared at the impossible. The dead man walking. The ghost made flesh. Duncan turned slowly, looked at his brother. Something passed over his face. Not joy, not relief, something colder. Vindication. "Hello, James. Nice of you to finally show up." James looked terrible, thin to the point of emaciation, shirt torn and blood-stained, face hollow with exhaustion and something deeper, guilt perhaps, or resignation. He held no weapon, just stood there swaying slightly in the torchlight. "I came back," his voice cracked. "When I got Kate's letter, about Lily, about you taking her, I couldn't let my daughter pay for my sins." "Your sins." Duncan's laugh was bitter. "Your sins killed our father James. Your choices destroyed our family's name. And you thought you could just disappear, start over, pretend none of it happened. I never wanted any of this. The robbery, the lies, I was trying to survive. Then we all survive. Most of us do it without destroying everyone around us." Duncan gestured to his men. "Take him." 2 Pinkertons moved forward. James didn't resist. Let them bind his hands. Stood passive as they searched him for weapons. Kate started forward. "No, James, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." James looked at her across the clearing. His eyes found Lily, who had stopped running, stood frozen between the 2 groups. "Lily, baby, I'm sorry for everything. For not being there. For leaving. For being a coward." The child said nothing. Just stared at the father she barely remembered. "Duncan." James turned back to his brother. "You have me. Let them go. Kate, Lily, everyone. This is between us." "Is it—" Duncan walked slowly toward James. "Because it seems to me you made it everyone's problem when you faked your death, when you forced Mrs. Brennan to lie for you, when you abandoned your daughter to be raised by a drunk and a stranger." "I know. You're right. About all of it." James's voice dropped. "But I'm here now. I'll face whatever punishment you think I deserve. Just let them walk away." Duncan stopped 2 feet from his brother, studied him. Then his hand shot out, grabbed James by the throat. "You think it's that simple? You think you can just surrender and everything's forgiven?" His voice was low, venomous. "Father died believing you were a coward and a thief. Died with that shame eating him alive. I watched him waste away. Watched the heart attack take him while he was reading yet another article about his criminal son. James's face was red, struggling to breathe. Duncan released him. James collapsed to his knees, gasping. I wanted you dead, Duncan continued. Wanted to find you and put a bullet in you myself. But then I realized something. Death is too easy, too quick. You don't get to escape into the grave and be mourned. You get to live. Get to face trial. Get to hang in front of everyone you ever knew. Get to have your name dragged through every newspaper in Kansas. And then when they finally drop the trapdoor, you get to die knowing you destroyed everything you ever touched. He gestured to his men. Put him on a horse. We're taking him back to town. Trials in 3 days. Hanging to follow immediately after. The Pinkertons hauled James to his feet, started dragging him toward the horses. Kate ran forward. No, you can't. Duncan turned to her. Can't I? He's a wanted criminal. I'm a citizen executing my lawful duty to bring him to justice. His eyes were cold. Be grateful I'm letting you live, Mrs. Brennan. You aided a fugitive. Helped him fake his death. That's a crime, but I'm feeling generous. Chalk it up to female weakness. Misplaced loyalty. You get to walk away. Mama... Lily's voice cut through everything. High, terrified. The child ran toward Kate. Mama, don't let them take him. The word hit like a physical blow. Mama. The girl had never called her that before. Always Aunt Kate. Always careful to maintain the fiction. But in crisis truth emerged, and Lily's truth was simple. Kate was her mother in every way that mattered. Kate caught the child, held her close, felt small arms wrap around her neck, felt tears against her shoulder. It's all right, baby, it's all right. But it wasn't. James was being tied to a horse, hands bound behind his back. Duncan's men were mounting up, forming a convoy, taking him back to town, to trial, to death. Gideon moved to Kate's side. We can still fight, take them. No, Kate's voice was hollow. Look around. We're outnumbered. Outgunned. And Lily's in the crossfire. We can't risk it. So we just let Duncan win. We let Lily live. Kate looked down at the child in her arms. That's what matters. She's safe. She's alive. Everything else is secondary. Nash stumbled forward, drunk again, or still drunk, or never sober. That's my brother. We can't just let them take him. Your brother chose this. Kate's voice was harder than she intended. He came back knowing what would happen. He's trying to make up for abandoning Lily. For abandoning all of us. Let him have that much. Let him die for something instead of hiding forever. Duncan mounted his horse. Looked down at them from the saddle. 3 days, Mrs. Brennan. Trial is set for Monday morning. Hanging at noon. You're welcome to attend. Watch justice being served. He paused. And in case you're thinking of mounting some kind of rescue, don't. I'll have 20 armed men in that courthouse. Try anything and innocent people die. Including you. Including that child. He spurred his horse. The convoy moved out, taking James with them. The bound man looked back once, met Kate's eyes across the growing distance, mouthed 2 words, thank you. Then he was gone, swallowed by darkness and the sound of hoofbeats fading into night. Kate sank to her knees, still holding Lily. Margaret appeared beside them, streaked with tears. The woman reached out, touched her daughter's hair with trembling fingers. Is he really my papa? Lily asked, voice small. Yes, baby, he's really your papa. Why did he leave? Because he made mistakes, big ones, and he's been paying for them ever since. Will they really hang him? Kate looked at Margaret, at Gideon, at Nash, who had collapsed in the dirt, openly weeping. Yes, they'll hang him. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that broke what was left of Kate's heart. Can we save him? Kate closed her eyes, felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down. James deserved to hang. Had earned it through years of lies and cowardice. But he'd also come back, had walked into certain death to save his daughter. That had to count for something. Didn't it? I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know. They stayed there in the dirt until the torches burned low, until the cold drove them to their feet, until reality reasserted itself and survival became once again the only goal that mattered. 3 days until James Brennan hanged. 3 days to decide if a man who'd spent his life running deserved one last chance at redemption. 3 days to choose between justice and mercy, between what James had earned and what Lily needed. As they rode back toward town, Kate made a decision. Right or wrong, it was hers to make. James would not hang alone. The sun had not yet risen when Kate returned to the ranch with Lily sleeping against her shoulder. The child had cried herself into exhaustion during the ride home, small body shaking with says that tore at something deep in Kate's chest. Now she was quiet breath coming in small hitches, face pressed into Kate's neck. Margaret followed on her own horse, silent as a shadow. Nash had disappeared somewhere between the mine and town, likely seeking the bottom of another bottle. Gideon rode beside Kate Winchester across his saddle eyes, scanning the darkness for threats that never materialized. Inside the house, Kate laid Lily in her bed, tucked blankets around the small form. brushed hair from the sleeping face. The child stirred but didn't wake, just curled tighter, one hand clutching the rag doll that had been her constant companion since she was 3. Kate stood watching her, memorizing this moment, the peace before the storm, the quiet before impossible choices had to be made. Margaret appeared in the doorway. The woman's eyes were fixed on the sleeping child, on the daughter she'd given birth to but never been allowed to raise. "She looks like me when I was young." Margaret's voice was barely above a whisper. "Same way of curling up. Same little crease between her eyebrows when she dreams. You can stay if you want. Sit with her." Margaret shook her head. "I've watched her sleep from windows for 8 years. Being this close, actually being in the same room, it hurts more than watching from a distance." She turned away. "We need to talk about what happens next." They moved to the kitchen. Gideon was already there, spreading maps across the table. The courthouse, the surrounding streets, escape routes, and bottlenecks. "Duncan will have the building locked down tight," Gideon said without preamble. "Every entrance guarded. Sharpshooters on the roofs. It'll be a fortress. Then we don't go through the front." Kate studied the map. "What about the old tunnel system, the one from mining days?" "Collapsed, half flooded. Even if we could get through, it would take days. So we have no way in." "I didn't say that." Gideon tapped a spot on the map. "There's a ventilation grate in the courthouse basement, connects to the sewer system. Narrow, uncomfortable, but passable for 1 person. Maybe 2. And once we're inside, then we improvise." He looked up. "But before we plan a rescue that might get everyone killed, we need to ask the hard question. Should we save James at all?" The words hung in the air. Margaret moved to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Kate remained at the table, hands flat on the map. "He came back," Kate said quietly, "when he could have stayed hidden. When he could have let Lily die rather than face Duncan. That has to mean something." "Does it?" Gideon's voice was hard. "Or is it just one decent act in a lifetime of selfish ones? One moment of courage doesn't erase years of cowardice." "No, but maybe it's a start. A start toward what he's going to hang either way." Gideon leaned back. "And maybe he should. Maybe that's the only justice left for a man who's hurt so many people." Margaret turned from the window. "There's something you both need to understand about James Brennan." They looked at her. "James has spent his entire life running from consequences, from responsibility, from being the man he should have been." Margaret's voice was steady but hard. "He came back not because he wanted to save Lily. He came back because dying for her is easier than living for her." Kate felt the words land like stones. "What do you mean? Well, dying makes him a hero. The father who sacrificed everything. It's clean, final. Lily grows up with a martyr instead of a failure. But living..." Margaret's eyes blazed. "Living means facing what he did every single day, means trying to be better, means showing up and proving he's changed. That's terrifying for a man like James. Death is the easy way out." Silence filled the kitchen. Outside, the first hints of dawn touched the horizon, gray light bleeding into black. "So you're saying we let him hang," Kate said slowly. "I'm saying we give Lily what she needs, not what we think she deserves." Margaret pulled out a chair, sat down. "She needs to see her father make one brave choice, one selfless act, and then she needs to learn to live without him, just like I did, just like you did when your father died." The comparison stung. Kate had been 14 when they hanged Silas McKenna, old enough to understand, young enough to be destroyed by it. But she'd survived, grown, become someone her father would have been proud of, despite everything. Could Lily do the same? 3 days, Kate said finally. "We have 3 days before the hanging. We use that time to prepare Lily, to help her understand that sometimes love means letting go. And on Monday morning we're there, not to rescue James. To witness him finally doing something right." Gideon nodded slowly. "I'll be there too. Not for James, for the people he hurt. To see that justice, however late, finally comes." Margaret reached across the table, took Kate's hand. "We'll help Lily through this, all of us. She won't face it alone." They sat together as dawn broke outside. 3 broken people bound by love for one small girl, planning not a rescue but a goodbye. Saturday passed in a blur of quiet conversation and careful explanations. Lily took the news better than expected. She didn't cry, didn't rage, just listened with that too-old expression as Kate and Margaret explained what would happen Monday morning. "Your father is going to die," Kate said, kneeling before the child. "The law says he has to pay for the things he did wrong. And he's accepted that. He's not fighting it anymore." "Because of me," Lily's voice was small. "No, sweetheart. Because of choices he made long before you were born. You didn't cause any of this." "But he came back for me. Doesn't that count?" Margaret spoke up. "It counts for something. It means he loved you. But love doesn't erase consequences. Your father hurt people, stole from them, lied to them, and now he has to answer for that." Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Can I see him?" Before and Kate and Margaret exchanged glances. "I don't know if the sheriff will allow it. Please, I need to talk to him, just once." Sunday afternoon, Sheriff Ford made an exception, allowed Lily 15 minutes in the cell with her father. Kate and Margaret waited outside, listening to the murmur of voices they couldn't quite make out. When Lily emerged, her face was calm, resolved. "What did you say to him?" Kate asked gently. "I told him I forgive him, and I told him I hope he's brave tomorrow." The child paused. "He cried. I've never seen him cry before." That night, Lily slept between Kate and Margaret in the big bed. 3 generations of women bound by circumstance and choice rather than blood. In the darkness, Lily spoke one more time. "Will it hurt when they hang him?" Kate considered lying, decided against it. "It will be quick, that's all I can promise." "Good. I don't want him to suffer." Then sleep claimed her, but Kate and Margaret lay awake until dawn, each lost in memories of men who'd shaped their lives and then left them to pick up the pieces. Monday arrived cold and clear, the kind of morning that felt scrubbed clean by winter wind. No clouds. Just endless blue sky and air so sharp it hurt to breathe. Copper Ridge had transformed overnight. The town square, normally quiet except for market days, now teemed with people. Hundreds of them. Farmers and ranchers who'd ridden in from miles around. Merchants closing shops to attend. Children perched on parents' shoulders for better views. The atmosphere was half carnival, half funeral. Excitement mixed with grim satisfaction. At the center of it all, the gallows. Fresh lumber, new rope. Trapdoor oiled and tested. Everything ready. Everything perfect. Kate stood at the edge of the crowd, Lily's hand gripped tight in hers. Margaret flanked the child's other side. Gideon stood behind them, solid and silent. Nash was there, too sober for the first time in months. His face was gray eyes hollow, but his hands were steady. Lily hadn't spoken since waking. Just dressed in silence. Ate nothing at breakfast. Allowed herself to be led into town like a sleepwalker. Her face was blank, shut down against emotion too big for an 8-year-old heart to process. "You don't have to watch," Kate had told her before they left. "You can stay home. Remember him alive." "No," Lily's voice was small but certain. "He came back for me. I should be here for him." So they stood in the cold morning waiting for justice or vengeance or whatever people called it when they killed a man in public and felt righteous doing it. Sheriff Ford appeared on the courthouse steps leading James out in chains. The crowd noise swelled. Some people cheered. Others fell silent. James looked worse than he had at the mine. Thinner. Pale as milk. He'd been given clean clothes for the execution. A white shirt and black trousers, hands bound in front of him. Duncan walked beside his brother, face composed. The perfect picture of civic duty. Behind them, 6 armed deputies. 20 more scattered through the crowd. Duncan had meant what he said about security. There would be no rescue, no last-minute heroics. They led James up the gallows steps, positioned him over the trapdoor. The executioner, a man imported from Topeka for the occasion, placed the noose. Adjusted it, tested the knot. James's eyes searched the crowd. Found Lily. His face crumpled. The judge stepped forward, read the charges: robbery, fraud, fakery of death, abandonment of family responsibility. The list went on. Each crime recited in a voice that carried across the square. "James Robert Brennan, you have been found guilty of these crimes by a jury of your peers. The sentence is death by hanging to be carried out immediately. Do you have any final words?" James opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "To my daughter, to everyone I hurt. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger, wasn't better. I chose the easy path every time. Ran instead of fighting. Hid instead of facing what I'd done." He looked directly at Lily. "Baby girl, you deserved a better father. I'm sorry I couldn't be him, but I'm trying to be brave now. For you, just this once." The judge nodded, stepped back. The executioner moved to pull the hood over James's head. "Wait." A new voice, strong, clear, cutting through the murmur of the crowd. Gideon Cole pushed forward, climbed the gallows steps despite protests from deputies, pulled a thick folder from inside his coat. "I have evidence. Evidence this court needs to hear before executing this man." Duncan's face went tight. "This is irregular. The trial's over. Verdict rendered." The trial was incomplete. Gideon opened the folder. "James Brennan is guilty. I'm not disputing that. But he didn't work alone. The Kansas Pacific robbery had a mastermind, someone who planned it, financed it, and profited from it while letting James take all the blame." Shocked silence rippled through the crowd. Duncan's hand moved toward his pistol. "These are desperate lies." "Are they?" Gideon pulled out papers, ledgers, bank statements. Duncan Brennan made deposits totaling $20,000 in the 3 months after the robbery. Deposits he couldn't explain, couldn't account for. "I have witness statements from Pinkerton agents who were ordered to stop investigating when the trail led to Duncan. I have records of meetings between Duncan and known criminals in the weeks before the robbery." Sheriff Ford climbed the gallows, examined the documents. His face went pale. "These are authentic," Ford said quietly. "I've seen Duncan's financial records. The amounts match. The dates match." "He's been bought," Duncan snarled. "They're fabricating evidence to save a guilty man." "No," James spoke up, voice stronger now. "Gideon's telling the truth. Duncan came to me 8 years ago, said he had a plan to make money. I was desperate. Drowning in debt, I agreed to help. But it was his plan. His contacts. His crime. I was just the fool who got caught." "Shut your mouth, James. Why, I'm already dying. Might as well die with the truth." James looked at the crowd. "My brother orchestrated everything. Kept most of the money. And when things got complicated, when people started asking questions, he made sure I took all the blame. Made sure our father died, believing I was the only guilty one." Duncan's composure finally cracked. His face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful coward. I gave you a way out of poverty. Gave you opportunity, and you squandered it. Just like you squandered everything Father ever gave you." "Father gave me nothing but contempt." James's voice rose. "But you took everything. His love, his respect, his business, and it still wasn't enough. You needed him to die hating me so you could be the perfect son, the righteous one." For a long moment Duncan said nothing. Then something in him shifted. The mask fell away. What remained was cold, bitter, twisted by years of comparison and competition. "So what if I did—" His voice was ice. "Father was weak, would have forgiven you, would have let you destroy our family name even further. I couldn't allow that. I made sure he knew what you really were. Made sure his last days were filled with the shame you earned." The admission hung in the air. The crowd stirred. Whispers became shouts. Duncan drew his pistol, but he didn't point it at Gideon. He pointed it at James. "You're going to hang brother, but not before I tell you one more truth. Margaret didn't die in childbirth. I paid the doctor to tell you that. Paid him to give her money and make her disappear, because I knew a wife and child would be your excuses, your reasons to stay weak. I wanted you free of obligations so you'd take risks, make mistakes, destroy yourself." He smiled without warmth. "And it worked," Margaret gasped from the crowd. Nash started forward, but deputies blocked him. James stared at his brother. "You took my wife from me, made me believe she was dead, made me abandon my daughter. I gave you exactly what you deserved. Nothing." The shot came then, not from Duncan's gun, from the crowd. Nash Brennan had somehow gotten past the deputies, had somehow reached the edge of the gallows with a rifle in shaking hands. The bullet took Duncan in the chest, high, near the heart. Duncan jerked, looked down at the spreading red. His pistol fell from the nerveless fingers. He collapsed to his knees on the gallows platform. Sheriff Ford was already moving, shouting for the doctor. Deputies swarmed Nash, wrestled the rifle away. The young man didn't fight, just stood there weeping. "He destroyed us," Nash sobbed. "Destroyed James, destroyed Margaret, destroyed our whole family. I couldn't let him keep talking. Couldn't let him win." Duncan lay on the gallows, blood pooling beneath him. His breathing was wet, labored. Ford knelt beside him, but there was nothing to be done. The wound was mortal. "James," Duncan's voice was fading, "you were always Father's favorite. Always the one he believed in. Even when you failed. Even when you ran, and I hated you for it. Hated you so much I destroyed both our lives just to prove I was better." James said nothing, just stood over the trapdoor with the noose around his neck, watching his brother die. Duncan's eyes went empty. The breath rattled out. He died on the gallows meant for his brother, surrounded by the people who'd come to watch justice and saw something far messier instead. Sheriff Ford stood slowly, looked at the crowd, at the chaos, at James still standing patient in the noose. For a moment Kate thought maybe this changed things. Maybe Duncan's death and Gideon's evidence would be enough to stop the execution, but Sheriff Ford's voice was firm when he spoke. "Duncan Brennan's crimes don't erase James Brennan's crimes. 2 men were guilty. One died by gunshot, the other dies by law." He looked at James. "The sentence stands." James nodded slowly. "I understand, and I accept it." "No," Lily's voice cut through everything, high, desperate. The child tried to push forward, but Kate held her back. "Please, he's my father. Please don't." James looked down at her. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "Lily, listen to me, baby. I deserve this. I've run from consequences my whole life. I've hurt people, abandoned you, been a coward in every way that matters." He paused. "But right now, standing here accepting what I've earned, this is the first brave thing I've ever done. Let me do it. Let me finally be the man I should have been. I don't want you to be brave. I want you to live." "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes the bravest thing is accepting when your time is done." He looked at Kate, at Margaret. "Take care of her. Both of you. Love her the way I couldn't. Be the family I failed to give her." Kate felt tears streaming down her face, nodded. The executioner stepped forward. James took a deep breath. "I'm ready." The hood came down over his head. The executioner checked the noose one final time, stepped back, gripped the lever. Lily buried her face in Kate's skirt, unable to watch. Margaret wrapped her arms around them both. Gideon removed his hat, bowed his head. Sheriff Ford raised his hand. Held it there for 3 heartbeats, then dropped it. The executioner pulled the lever. The trapdoor opened. James Brennan fell. The rope snapped taut with a sound like breaking wood. His body jerked once, went still. In Kate's arms, Lily's legs gave out. The child would have collapsed if not for the women holding her. Her sobs were silent, airless, the kind of grief that goes too deep for sound. The crowd was quiet now. The carnival atmosphere had evaporated. What remained was uncomfortable. Sobering. The reality of death stripped of righteousness and spectacle. After the required time, the doctor climbed the gallows, checked for a pulse, found none, made the official declaration. James Robert Brennan, deceased, 11:23 a.m., January 16th, 1885. They cut him down, laid him in a plain pine coffin. This time there would be no fakery, no stones wrapped in clothes, just a body, just an ending. Sheriff Ford approached Kate and Margaret. "You can take him. Bury him wherever you think right." Kate looked at Lily, still sobbing quietly. "The ranch, next to where we buried the empty coffin. He can rest there." Ford nodded, turned away to deal with Nash, who was being led to the jail in chains. Gideon stood apart from everyone staring at the gallows, at the empty noose still swaying slightly in the wind. His face was unreadable. "Did you get what you wanted?" Kate asked him quietly. "I don't know." His voice was hollow. "I wanted James to pay for what he did to me. And he did, but I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated. Instead, I just feel—" He trailed off. "Empty." "Yes, empty." He looked at her. "Revenge doesn't fill anything. It just creates more holes." They stood together in silence. Around them the crowd dispersed. The gallows stood empty. 2 men had died on that platform today. 2 brothers destroyed by secrets and lies and the weight of a father's love unequally distributed. It wasn't justice. It wasn't redemption. It was just ending. Messy and painful and final. Summer came to the ranch. The wheat fields turned gold. The cattle fattened on good grass. The fence lines held strong. Everything looked almost normal, almost peaceful. Lily turned 9 in June. She was quieter now, more serious, but she smiled sometimes, laughed at Gideon's terrible jokes, helped Margaret with the baking, rode her pony through the pastures with something like joy. The grave sat on the low hill behind the barn, 2 markers side by side, one old weathered marking the empty coffin, one new simple pine with carved letters, James Robert Brennan, 1856 to 1885, beloved father, flawed man, brave at the end. Lily visited every Sunday. Brought wildflowers, talked to the stone about her week. Kate never asked what she said. Some conversations were private even after death. Nash had been released after 3 months. Duncan's death ruled justifiable homicide in defense of family. The young man had stopped drinking. Found work at a mill in Topeka. Visited the ranch once a month. Sober, steady, trying to be the uncle Lily deserved. Margaret had moved in permanently. Sold the boarding house. Became a fixture in Lily's life. Not as mother exactly, but as family. The 3 of them, Kate and Margaret and Lily, had found a rhythm, a way of being together that worked despite everything that should have broken them. Gideon stayed too, worked the ranch, helped with Lily, found something like peace in the daily routine of honest labor. He never spoke of James, never mentioned the hanging, just moved forward one day at a time. On a warm Sunday in late June, Kate found Lily sitting by the graves. The child wasn't crying, just sitting, thinking. "Can I join you?" Lily nodded. Kate sat beside her in the grass. "Do you think he's in heaven?" Lily asked after a while. "I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I hope he is. I hope he found peace." "Me too, sweetheart." They sat in comfortable silence. A hawk circled overhead. The wind carried the smell of wheat and earth and the promise of rain. "I forgive him," Lily said suddenly, "for everything, for leaving, for lying, for all of it. He made mistakes. But he tried to be brave at the end. That counts for something." "It counts for a lot." "Do you forgive him?" Kate thought about it, really thought. "I'm working on it. Forgiveness takes time, but I think I'll get there eventually." Lily leaned against her. "I'm glad you're my mom, not just my aunt, my real mom. Is that okay?" Kate's throat tightened. "More than okay. And Miss Margaret, too. Yes, you have 2 mothers who love you more than anything in the world. That's pretty special." "I know." Lily stood brushed grass from her dress. "I'm going to help Miss Margaret with the pot. You coming?" "In a minute." Lily ran down the hill toward the house. Kate remained by the graves, pulled a letter from her pocket, one she'd written but never sent, one that said all the things she couldn't say when James was alive. She read it once, then struck a match, watched the paper burn, scattered the ashes over the grave. "You hurt a lot of people, James Brennan, including yourself, but you gave me Lily, And for that I'll always be grateful. Rest well, you've earned it. She stood, walked down the hill toward the house where Margaret and Lily waited, toward the future they were building together, toward life after death and lives and all the broken pieces they'd somehow assembled into something that looked like family. The sun set over the Kansas plains, red and gold bleeding into purple, beautiful and indifferent and eternal, and in the quiet that followed there was peace, not perfect, not complete, but real, and sometimes that was enough, sometimes it was everything.